This is Tournament in a Teabreak. We have two very weary travellers today. I'm Ros Satar from Britwatch Sports.
I'm Geroge Bellshaw from metro.co.uk.
And when I say it's late, I am not joking. Right now, my watch is telling me that it's got 10% of power remaining and it's midnight. So let's rattle through the best of yet another day of round one action. Let's start with Novak Djokovic, who it was potentially quite a big blockbuster of a first round, really. Djokovic and Nishikori both coming off injury-strewn seasons. It was interesting. I think from my perspective, having seen him in Indian Wells, where he kind of described it as, I felt like I placed my first ever tour match. He's definitely getting better, his Djoko smash notwithstanding. There's definitely green shoots of improvement. What do you think?
Yeah, I think in Monte Carlo I thought there were signs of improvement, and then obviously lost a team in that third round, and then lost to Klizan almost inexplicably in Barcelona, and you just thought he's back to square one again. So this was a really big match to come into, and I think, as he was saying, confidence-wise, to beat a big player like Nishikori. And Nishikori, there might have been some concerns over his fitness coming into this, but he had just been to the final of Monte Carlo. He had started to find good form himself. And, for Djokovic to come there, win that match in straight sets, okay, it was, 2 hours, but it was a good win. He never really looked like losing, I wouldn't have said.
No, I think he had a few dicey moments, but I think you always felt that the edge was with him rather than with Nishikori. And that he would find a way to puzzle through it. I think also with Vida coming back to his team, I think he said himself it's going to take a while to put his game back together, and that's what it feels like to me, that he's almost having to start from ground zero and work his way back up, get a team around him that he feels comfortable with, get a group of people around him that are close-knit, that he has trust in. I'm not saying that he didn't have trust issues with Agassi or with Becker, but, Vida's been with him since, the year dot. So, I think if they stay together for the whole of this clay court season, it can only get better for Djokovic.
Yeah, and he was, stepping in on that baseline a bit more. There was a little bit more aggression about his ground strokes there, a little bit more belief behind them. There were a few more misses, but I think on the whole, the attitude and positive approach was good. I still think that killer shot's missing sometimes, and that just comes with match sharpness.
Yeah.
And that, he needs to get back to that stage of playing 5 matches a week, and that's when you're going to see him at his best.
In fact, actually talking of playing 5 matches a week, it follows on quite nicely from something that Maria Sharapova said in her first round match, that does she want to be going home early after 1 or 2 matches? No, she does not. Does she want to be sort of ranked at 60 and 70? No, she absolutely does not. I mean, she didn't make it easy for herself today either. I think it is another one of those confidence building matches that she'll come out of it and think, yeah, actually that was a good fight.
Yeah, it wasn't the best of starts against Begu, but by the end, I thought we were seeing, similarly with Djokovic, we were seeing signs of the old Sharapova. And
absolutely.
Again, we've not really seen that many signs of her being back at her best since her comeback. There have been flashes in the pan occasionally, but there's not been a consistent run of really good matches where I thought, oh, bloody hell, Sharapova's playing well against good opposition. And Begu's a good player. She took out Ostapenko in the first round.
Absolutely.
She's got good form here. She beat Muguruza here before. So I think that was a harder win than many would give it credit for.
One of the things that I get a sense of, having obviously seen Sharapova before the ban and now after the ban, and also pretty much from the beginning of her comeback in Stuttgart, is that maybe once where she had that sort of arrogance of, I should be brushing you aside, she doesn't have that anymore, because, since she's come back, there have been injuries, there have been sort of stop-starts. Then she won a title at the end of the year, then the split with Sven, and, I think she's just had blow after blow after blow, and now she's kind of, you know what, I really need to sort of reset. And I think for both of them, they've almost had to sort of strip everything back down to the basics of what made them who they were back in the day. But I think it's a long road ahead for both of them.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I think there are chances for both of them at the French Open if they carry on like this. I mean, obviously, when I say chances, for Djokovic, Nadal is obviously the big problem. But if he lands on the other side, there's not much else in that field that you think is going to really team aside, perhaps, that's going to really trouble him on clay if he's anywhere near the sort of level he was at. And Sharapova, that field's so open always, and especially on clays. Wozniacki said earlier this tournament, there's not a clay court specialist like Nadal in the WTA. Halep, probably the best until the final. But if you get yourself there, you'd almost back Sharapova.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fascinating when we come to do our draw previews and predictions. Easy for me to say it this time of the night. Then I think, it could blow everything wide open. It's going to be fascinating. Yeah. Talking of what's got us to being tongue-tied right now, Vika and Pliskova, that was an ordeal for both, I think. Not to mention us watching.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really, really odd up and down match. I was admittedly co-watching with Mon Fils, who's just told me he's nowhere near fit enough to play Nadal, so that bodes well. Just drop that in.
He's such a cheerful kid. No, I've got no chance of beating Nadal.
Pretty much. But, I mean, Pliskova, I thought she would win that match from before.
I think she thought that too.
And after the first set, I was very confident. After the second set, I was a little less confident. After the break at the start of the third, I was very confident. And then it came back again. And to be fair to her, I think that hold at 5-all really won her the match, if anything.
Yeah.
Like, Azarenka had chances there. Pliskova held firm, and they just carried through.
Yeah, 4 break points, I think it was. I think it's, like you say, it's one of those pivotal games that you think whoever gets this takes the match. We've just come back from talking to her actually, and she was saying that she's never felt bad, but you can never tell when she says feeling bad. Does she mean injury? Does she mean cramp? I mean, when she said cramps, all of us were like, oh. She went, no, not cramps in my legs, head cramp. She just couldn't go for a shot. So I think the quick start actually threw off her game a little bit because Azarenka just gifted her a load of errors, and I think she thought it was going to be a lot quicker, and then her serve deserted her, and she's only really just got it back. It went on walkabout at the beginning of the year, and she's only just really been talking. In Stuttgart, she talked a lot about how she felt a lot better. Her serve was back. People were getting less of a read on it, and then towards the end, she thought she had it in the bag. Then Azarenka came back because she started to wobble again. I think she's happy to get through that because towards the end, I mean, that final game, Azarenka had her running left and right, and while she's got big long levers that eats up the court, that's great on a hard court. But when you're sliding around like Bambi on a clay court in a cold stadium, that's going to be tricky. She's got Sloane next. She said herself, there's a lot of things that I need to improve if I want to come away from that. And Sloane's been playing outstanding.
Yeah, she played really well earlier. I've never
for her to demolish Stosur on clay like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've never particularly had her down as much of a clay aficionado, but she seems to have settled pretty well here. I still back Pliskova.
Yeah, I mean, she had a rough Stuttgart because she was ill. She was virtually keeping Kleenex tissues in business for the whole week. I think she had a virus, and she really just mowed out of Stuttgart really early, and I think that's really helped her. I think she's come here, she's gotten used to the conditions. I'd back Pliskova, but I think we're in for another roller coaster. While we're talking of roller coasters, what's your pick? Do we go with Edmund first, or do we go with Konta?
Let's do Edmund because we've not chatted about him yet at all. So fresh face. How do you feel he'll get on?
It's interesting. I'd actually started to draft his preview because obviously the draw previews had come out quite early, which is helpful. And the focus had been, he's going to have to pick himself up and turn around after what was a pretty devastating decider in the Estoril quarter-final. But of course he was in the doubles with Cameron Norrie, and they won their first ATP doubles title, which is great for both of them because they both have a similar work ethic. They just get their head down and get the hard yards done. And I wonder now whether that's going to give him a fair bit of confidence because he got to stay out there and get some more clay under his shoes, and B, gives him a bit more variety because otherwise Medvedev is going to have him running back and forth from the baseline all day long. With the doubles, he's going to have to have introduced a bit more variety, and he can't rely all the time on that serve and forehand 1-2 punch. As effective as it is, at his age, he really does need to look for a little bit more variety. I think he'll win, but I think it's going to be a tough one. I think it's probably going to be a 3-setter.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say we've seen anywhere near the levels on clay we saw from Edmund last season this time around, which is perhaps more surprising considering how well he did in Australia. I really thought this was going to be a good chance for him to build on that great rankings jump he had. Having said that, obviously there's a bit of an injury problem coming in, which has probably slowed him down a bit, but this should be a decent chance maybe to get into the second round. I actually quite like Medvedev. He gets a bit of a bad rap because he's had a few questionable issues, but he's one of those games where you look at when he plays and you don't see too many holes in there in terms of ground strokes, etc. I think he'll do quite well. He's got a good serve. He'll keep on top of Edmund, and if Edmund doesn't play well, he can very easily lose this match. Reward for either of them is a match with Djokovic, which would, from a British perspective, be great to see Edmund face Djokovic.
It would, and I've got to be honest, actually. I mean, whilst I've written that Djokovic is on his way back up again, Djokovic in this state is a very winnable prospect for Kyle. It would be a fantastic win for him if he could do it, but he would have to bring his absolute best tennis to get there.
Well, if he plays as he did against Rafa last year against Novak, this year he's got a very good chance.
Which leads us on to Jo, of course. She's going to be closing things off on Court Arantxa Sanchez at 8 o'clock or thereabouts, and we are sitting with our heads in our hands for the benefit of the lack of visuals, because she's with Bernarda Pera again. So for those of you that might not remember, Pera was the player who downed her in the second round. So she'd started really well against Sprengel. And then Pera was just swinging free. I think came in as a qualifier, absolutely nothing to lose, and really took Konta to the cleaners.
Yeah, that was in Australia.
Yeah, and if we look rationally at this, she just started with Michael Joyce. It's back to this situation with coaches. It takes a while to bed in that relationship, So it was still very early days, but it was the start of a bit of a spin for Jo.
I mean, when you look at Konta's results from the previous 6 months, that loss wasn't a great surprise because she'd barely won anything. So, I mean, yes and no, that was a surprise there. She then went on to beat Pera in Doha, but that wasn't particularly straightforward either, if memory serves.
I mean, I think she was gifted more by the fact that Pera just imploded on herself. As soon as, I think, if I remember right, as soon as Konta got her nose in front, Pera just fell apart. But you can't rely, that's in Doha on a hard court, which is Jo's bread and butter. You can't rely on that on a surface that isn't her best. Although, in fairness, she and Zhang did very well in the doubles. They seem to be having a lot of fun, and I was watching her footwork a lot in that doubles, and it's still very tippy-toey, sort of scamper like a squirrel, but it looks a lot more comfortable than it did in Charleston, where it really looked like if I put my foot down, I'm just going to literally skate into a barrier. So I think we're in for a roller coaster, though. I don't think we're going to I think we're going to be talking to you again at probably gone midnight, very tired.
I really hope not. And if you are listening, Jo, please just win this in straight sets, 1 and 2.
Yes, because of course she
60 minutes. I'm sure she does. I'm sure they're all listening. But yeah, I can't take another night like this. I'm tired.
Yeah, well, yeah, we promise that we'll try and be a bit more cheerful.
Only if you finish quickly, though.
So, predictions then. Do you think that our Brits will go through? Jo will get a back-to-back win?
Yeah, I think Konta will win. I
don't
think she's in a happier place than when she's played Pera in the 2 previous times. I think she'll be fine. I think Kyle will probably carry that momentum through from the doubles too, but either in 3 or Medvedev could easily win as well. I'm not very confident, but yeah, he should win. If he's at his best, he'll win.
I think we'll leave things there. Thank you for joining me again on Tournament in a Teabreak, which probably is now Tournament in a Nightcap. You've been listening to Ros Satar and
Geroge Bellshaw.
Thank you. Bye-bye.